What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, here with Mike Gallagher for a 6-game NBA slate. And Mike, it just doesn't feel the same without the NBA Cup action. So we'll get through it. A little bit of a hangover edition of the Injury Report Analysis Show because, the Cup games were a little bit disappointing last night. But we're back at it just for pure, unadulterated NBA regular season basketball, which comes with plenty of questionable tags and injury notes. Mike, how are you doing?
Doing all right. Yeah, pretty fun day yesterday. At least we had a good day in the props again. We had a really nice unders on some injury stuff that we'll talk about today. Those guys are on back-to-backs, so we'll talk about that. Yeah, a lot of injury stuff. Again, it's that time of year. There's a lot of injury tags going on this time of season, so should be fun to break it down.
Yep. Let's get into the injury report. Let's start with Detroit and Boston. Detroit on the second end of a back-to-back after a disappointing performance last night at home against Milwaukee. They've listed just Asar Thompson as out. We had expected there to be more on the injury report here. What are your notes on the Pistons?
Yeah, it's worth noting, too, the last time they played a back-to-back, it was the Friday-Saturday game. They played Cade full in his return, and then they late scratched him on Saturday. Would note that's not off the table today. The Pistons have done this, I would say, at least 4 to 5 times on just Cade. So I would call Cade probable, if not even being listed. As you noted, though, they didn't have it. Cade didn't play as many minutes. There was some blowout here, so maybe he's okay. But I would still be a little bit cautious that they are, like I said, don't ignore Cade. If you're looking to bet unders on, somebody here. So yeah, keep an eye on that. And then no Tobias listed. He had the hip impingement. Surprised he's not listed at all. And then everything else is pretty standard. Asar Thompson not playing today, not a surprise. They've been playing him in basically 3-ish minute stints as they're managing him from the blood clot issue that kept him out of activities for the first month of the season. So yeah, again, beware of the late scratch, but not having to play too deep after getting blown out last night. I think Cade's in, but again, be a little bit careful.
Yeah, and we've seen with Detroit, with Cade specifically, we've seen late scratches that happen literally after the game is locked from a DFS perspective and before the game starts and tips. We've seen that twice in the last year. So yeah, certainly still on red alert based on the coaching comments here, some concerns as well. Also huge underdogs in Boston. On the Boston side of the equation, we've got questionable tags on Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum. Notable, not on the injury report, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, all who were on the injury report in some capacity or out for last game. So just Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum here. Questionable tag on Drew Holiday with the left knee tendinopathy, Jason Tatum right knee tendinopathy. Tatum tends to play through more of these Q tags than other players on the Celtics, but what are your thoughts on his availability and Drew's availability tonight?
Yeah, we thought Tatum was like a back-to-back sit-you-out kind of situation. Apparently that's not the case. After the game, Joe Mazzulla said that Jason Tatum is dealing with a knee injury and it is bothering him a little bit. This is the Pistons. We'll talk about Payne Pritchard in a second. So there's a chance, given the spread, there's a chance Tatum sits. I think that they want to kind of keep him fresh. I don't think he's missed any games. They may want to try to keep him on the court. He says he wants to play through stuff. We'll see if it's getting worse, all that. Tatum's been remarkably durable. So would expect him to play. And he's been, pretty good. Didn't have a great game against Miami, but Miami's always handled Tatum pretty well. As you noted, no Derek White listed. We saw him play in return, looked pretty good. He's owned the Heat as well, so he should be back. Don't expect full minutes. Obviously, a big spread anyways, but he'll be in the starting lineup for sure. Jaylen Brown, noted not listed. We saw him, going back to Monday. All the Q tags got announced in or out, and then Brown still had the Q tag for a little bit, getting over his illness, but looked great, aggressive, all that good stuff. Expect him to start with foolish minutes. Drew Holiday has been missing time with this knee thing. We've been talking about it since the preseason, since they were cutting his preseason stint short to play Payton Pritchard more. Probably the most doubtful between him and Tatum. Could see him missing again. And as we noted, despite some early starting lineups saying that Payton Pritchard and Neemias Queta were going to start, that was not correct. They started Jordan Walsh and Luke Kornet. Luke Kornet played really well, had 6 blocks. A lot of comments from Mazzulla and Kornet talking about how they want him to foul guys and be more physical. to get him in the rotation. He's been playing a lot better, so expect him to play. But obviously with Kristaps and Horford back, that'll be cut down. But Kornet was really on the outs as Neemias Queta. Even Xavier Tillman was getting minutes over him, but it looks like Kornet's kind of getting back in a good graces again. Headline is he's not in a very good spot. And then last note, of course, anyone who saw preseason, I believe it was media day, the Jaylen Brown quote saying whenever they play a team like the Pistons, they're going to try to get Peyton Pritchard 30. Peyton Pritchard just absolutely cooking. We'll come off the bench regardless of statuses, I believe, and we'll play a ton and we'll get a ton of shots. Can like FanDuel drop a Peyton Pritchard buzzer beater? All like the guy's like a flip to get a shot at the buzzer beater. So yeah, expecting a pretty big, decent outing out of Peyton Pritchard if one of Jason Tatum or Jrue Holiday sit.
I was going to say to check your mic, but at the end you sounded great there. So it sounded, I don't know if it switched between your AirPods and your mic there, but for the middle of that, you sounded a little underwater, and at the end you sounded great. On the Pritchard note, yeah, I think the Detroit thing was just like an example. I don't think it was.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's fun though.
To this matchup. But yeah, Pritchard's been awesome all year. And certainly if Jrue Holiday does miss this game, opens up a great opportunity for him. Let's go to Indiana and Brooklyn. On the Indiana side, second night of a back-to-back for them. So no Andrew Nembhard, left knee injury management. Once again, played the first half yesterday, sat the second half. They're still without Ben Shepherd, Aaron Nesmith, James Weissman, and Isaiah Jackson. They got worked by Toronto last night. They kind of made a little bit of a run in the third quarter to make the game look somewhat competitive, and then Toronto pulled away again back at the end here. Heavy minutes once again. I noted that on the DFS show. I was like, hey, I don't know how you can keep playing this kind of rotation on the front end of a back-to-back. They did. They got worked. Second night of a back-to-back against a scrappy Brooklyn team. You got to keep projecting it tight until you see it differently. But they really only played an 8-man rotation last night with a guy that they were only playing for a half. That's crazy to me on the front end of a back-to-back. So what are your thoughts or expectations here on Indiana? We saw 40 from Halliburton, 38 from Turner, 36 from Siakam, and 37 from Mathurin last night.
Yeah, look at Halliburton having a big road game. Scored 30. Drove it a little bit, had that going. And he was really pissed post-game. I listened to his post-game presser. He said he, quote, is not ready to piss away a year of his career with how poorly they're playing right now. He said his favorite phrase of the presser was a reality check among these guys. I mean, this is embarrassing. They had, 14 turnovers in the first, just over a quarter. They were turning the ball over like crazy. Nembhard turned it over a bunch. Siakam had one of his worst games of the year, didn't have the revenge in his heart against the Raptors. But yeah, expect this to be pretty tight. Obi Toppin played pretty well off the bench to shout him out. McConnell also played pretty well off the bench to kind of get the Pacers back in this game. But yeah, nobody listed. Halliburton looks to be, back in order with the 40 minutes. And again, playing great. To see him do that on the road, that was nice to see. So yeah, Andrew Nembhard, shout out to us. We found out that Rick Carlisle said that it was going to be somewhat similar for Nembhard, and that got us to get an under that hit. Got a little sweaty at the end, but hey, we got it. So yeah, expecting, I think despite Quentin Jackson not playing last night, I think he's going to start. We've seen that be the case. I don't think Jarris Walker was very good. Also had some really bad turnovers last night, shot 0 of 5. So I think Quentin Jackson starts, and then we'll see. Enrique Freeman got minutes at the 4. He played next to Turner for a bit yesterday. That you would think that Carlisle extends it a little bit after really gunning for it. And should know Rick Carlisle's presser was one of the shortest of the year. He's a guy who's been pretty much a good sport, regardless of how horribly it went. But he was pretty pissed with this one. We know Carlisle can rage it and change things. But yeah, overall, I expect mostly the same situation with the rotation being basically the same, but with Quentin Jackson getting the start for Nembhard, who is going to rest. Again, plan rest. We knew this was coming. We had him out in projections all day.
Yeah, I'm very nervous about weirdness with this rotation. We have a history of Rick Carlisle, second night of back-to-backs, when he's really frustrated, doing some really weird things. They don't have a lot of players to do some weird things, but if we extend out and like Johnny Furphy's playing like 24 minutes today or something, I'd be like, yep, I've seen this one from Rick Carlisle before. So that's my note, is just that, like, man, it's a tricky spot from a projection standpoint because there's just not bodies to actually give those minutes to. But I've seen Carlisle do some really weird stuff on the second night of back-to-backs before. And the challenge here is, if this was like a really good opponent, like if they were going into Boston or something like that, I'd be like, we're going to see some weird stuff, because I could see Carlisle being like, yeah, we're just punting this game. We're not winning it anyway. Because it's at Brooklyn. It's a game that theoretically you could win and like kind of reset the vibes essentially. Maybe we just see more of the same in a really condensed rotation set. But this is too much for everybody. Like, Miles Turner ain't going to hold up like this, and you got nothing behind Miles Turner, so that's a problem.
Nothing.
Okay,
it's really bad. I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest gaps from starter to second unit, and I've seen it in a long time, man. They've got nobody behind him.
Yep. Brooklyn side of things, they've listed out Noah Clowney, Zaire Williams, Cam Thomas, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Jalen Martin. They have questionable tags on Cam Johnson, Ben Simmons, and Dorian Finney-Smith. What's your read on those questionable tags today?
Yeah, so kind of a lot going on here. Let's start with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons says he expects to play. We saw him get double listed in the last game. He got listed with the back management tag that's been keeping him out of back-to-backs, and he also tweaked his knee on Sunday, kept him out on Monday, just has the knee tag. So, the back thing was nothing new. That was just a, hey, we're going to sit you out anyways kind of a thing. I don't know if I believe him. It's Ben Simmons. And it's also worth noting, they've got a lot of bodies here. I think if Ben's like 90%, don't even play him, man. Like, you got Day'Ron Sharpe back. You got Trendon Watford back. You may want to play Derek Whitehead, who played pretty well, just to cover him. He had a fantastic game. 6 threes, was very good. Garbage time aided, but Derek Whitehead has been playing great. One of the youngest prospects in the draft 2 years ago there. So, yeah, I think that they might just sit Ben out anyways. Dorian Finney-Smith has been barely playing. I think he's only played 2 games since November 19th. He's been out since, I believe, the 27th. Clearly, this ankle thing's been bothering him. No rush to bring him back on the trade block, yada, yada. Cam Johnson also rolled his ankle rolled each ankle once in the last week and a half. Missed the last game. Not surprising. Said he was okay from it. So I think Cam's ankle should be okay. Cam Johnson, that is. Cam Thomas, obviously, still out from the hamstring strain. Should miss an additional week there. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with Nick Claxton should be starting. Was projected to play more minutes. He's almost done with the minutes restriction. There's a chance he gets up to 30 in a matchup that's a smash. So I think Nick Claxton could be in play. Should note, though, man, he hasn't done anything on like the high end all season because of minutes limits and just really poor play. Got called out for poor screening by Jordy Fernandez there. So expect him to start. Dennis Schroeder, who's been, oh my God, the handling rule has been insane. Coming off 9 minutes of touch time, is driving more. His potential assists have been really good. He's had one of the best roles in the NBA. So he'll start. Expecting Cam Johnson to start, I would think. And if he didn't, then it's going to probably be, I guess they would go to Tyrese Martin, but I think Cam Johnson's going to play. And then Dorian Finney-Smith, not as confident. They don't have Zaire Williams, who's still out with a knee sprain. So kind of a lot going on there. They might start Keon Johnson because they need another defender there. So I think that's a bit of a question. But I wouldn't be surprised if they start Trendon Watford and play him as a 4. And that way that opens up the front court a little bit, especially if Ben Simmons plays. Because they've got a bit of a crunch. They've got Ben, they've got Claxton, they've got Trendon Watford and Day'Ron Sharpe. All those guys are kind of nasty fits with each other. So I wouldn't be like totally shocked if Trendon Watford started at the 4 spot. So yeah, very unclear with these 3 questionable tags in somewhat similar positions on the wing. So we'll get some clarity there. But if I had to rank it, I would say Cam Johnson most likely, Ben second most likely, and then Dorian Finney-Smith least likely to play.
Yeah, couldn't they essentially just shift Ben Simmons to a point guard? And clear up some of that front court
what we did.
Issues.
We took some minutes away from Shake Milton. We took some minutes away from Keon.
Right.
Again, we're projecting all these guys in because they've been subbing him as mostly a center. So that could definitely happen just because they are playing Day'Ron and Trendon. And should note, Day'Ron was really talked up, and Day'Ron has been a really good rates guy, and they want to play him coming off that severe hamstring pull. So I feel pretty good that Day'Ron and Trendon Watford are going to get minutes. So if that happens and they want to play Ben, you're already covering 4 of your rotation spots, and you're getting a bit of a squeeze on the guards because you do want to play Dorian, Cam, and Jalen. Like Jalen Wilson's locked in. It's pretty nasty. This is a pretty tough team to do today.
Yeah, for sure. And I think long term, obviously, like we've been treating Ben Simmons as a center, but in the context of they've been missing Claxton a bunch, they've also been missing Sharp until this point, like, and they've been without Clowney a decent bit too. Under those circumstances, Ben Simmons is definitely a center. Under these circumstances, if they have Claxton and Sharp available, I think Ben Simmons might be a guard. So without Cam Thomas, so yeah, it's a tricky situation to project. It also could impact like what we've seen from Ben Simmons this year is, he's rebounded the ball really well. Does the rebound rate like come down a lot differently if he's sharing the floor more with these big guys and he's playing positionally more of a guard? So there's a lot of tricky nuances to Brooklyn that would be easier to ascertain and talk through if we knew who was actually available tonight. These three questionable tags certainly make it murkier. Let's go to the Lakers and Miami. LeBron returned to Miami. On the Lakers side, Anthony Davis probable, Jalen Hood-Schifino questionable, Austin Reeves questionable. They're still without Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood, and another bad report on Jared Vanderbilt. So he's going to be out even longer. What's your read on Austin Reeves' questionable tag? We'll start there, and then if you want to provide any extra context on Jared Vanderbilt and the update.
Yeah, there's no more context, man. The guy just misses every timeline they hit. So at this point, like, just sit him to the All-Star break at this point. They're already talking about early January for Jared Vanderbilt. This guy just can't stay on the court. And they need him, man. They need another on-ball defender. You can only play really so many minutes here. They're missing that energy guy off the bench. So, yeah, Austin Reeves, he was a partial participant at shoot-around, has missed a couple games with this back/hip thing. We saw him really fall down, I believe, on Friday. And didn't really have much of a chance to play in the last two games. So it sounds like he's closer to doubtful here. That would put D'Angelo Russell, who played okay in this last game, he would start in his place again. And then that would also keep Gabe Vincent, Max Christie, and then maybe Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish kind of like on thin ice to stay in the rotation. They'll continue to play Dalton Connect some pretty good minutes in an okay matchup against Miami, who's not as big of a three-point funnel, but they still are. We'll talk about Miami a little bit more on the other side. But yeah, Anthony Davis wasn't affected in the back-to-back. He played full minutes. Has been struggling, though. Anthony Davis's offense has been down. He's been below 20 points in 3 of his last 4. His rim scoring's been down. Obviously, the matchup's not great. He's had some tough matchups in OKC and Minnesota, so could expect him to bounce back. He's had one good game against Bam last year, 29-17, and then one really bad game against Bam last year, one of his worst games of the season. So not great matchup. LeBron also really struggling. Rim finishing's down. In a major slump from deep. He's 0 of 19 from deep in his last 4 games. So they got to get right here. Their offense is really struggling. Just scored 80 points. I believe it's the lowest scoring game in the 80 LeBron Lakers era. So yeah, quite cold on offense. They're 27th in offense in their last 6 games after being red hot. I mean, they were like 4th or 5th in offense for a long sustained period of time. And they flipped. They went from being a horrible, horrible defense to now a horrible, horrible offense while the defense is flipped. So don't know what Lakers team we're going to get.
Yeah, I'll note the timing. You noted some of the matchup stuff with AD that's come into play in terms of like the struggles of late, but he destroyed that Orlando matchup like 2 weeks ago with 39 and 9 in 38 minutes. And then I believe it was after that game that he was listed with the plantar fasciitis. And since then, he hasn't looked quite the same. And plantar fasciitis is no joke for big men. A number of big men have talked about how it is really, really limiting until basically it tears. And then when it tears, you get like an incredible amount of pain. And then you get the relief of like playing without the day-to-day pain of it. So I don't know if that'll end up happening eventually for Anthony Davis, but this left plantar fasciitis tag is like no joke for a big man. Like big men and feet, like injuries are just like really tough. You talked about with Drummond in the ankle the other day, but there's just so much pressure being put on their feet. Okay. Let's move to the Miami side where they have listed Khalil Ware and Josh Christopher out. They have listed questionable tags on Jovic, Nikola Jovic, and Josh Richardson, who were unavailable last game. Available tags on Drew Smith and Terry Rozier, and then a probable tag on Kevin Love, and a questionable tag with right knee soreness on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler missed last game. Jaime Jaquez started in his absence and played really well. It was also a game that they were without Jovic and Richardson. So we're getting pieces back, and Love. We're getting pieces back here from Miami, which makes things always confusing for Miami and very difficult to project. But we still have this lingering Jimmy Butler questionable tag hanging over. What are your expectations for Jimmy?
Well, Austin Reeves just got ruled out. So we don't need to recap that. It'll be D'Lo starting there. Okay, so yeah. Hey, you said Jaime played great. I don't know. He didn't play great. He shot 5 of 14, but hey, he hit our over. So we don't care. But play as crappy as you want. Get your shots up and get your over for us. Yeah, so it doesn't sound serious. Jimmy got a pretty early tag. They already, pre-assigned Khalil Ware to the G League before this. Should note Kevin Love got upgraded. Josh Richardson got upgraded and then got back downgraded to questionable now. So we have him out of projections. Like, there's no reason to mess with this with Josh Richardson. So I think Jimmy's back. That would get him back in the starting lineup. Miami's losing a little bit of their mojo. We saw them stick with Duncan Robinson, and they kind of said that they're basically going to stick with it for as long as it works. Are coming off 2 pretty bad losses, one of which where they only scored 89 points. Spoelstra mentioned that they, did get good looks. They were 8 of 35 from 3. So I don't think we're ready for a change. That said, it's Eric Spoelstra. You always want to be ready for a lineup change from Eric Spoelstra. So could see a lineup change there. But again, expecting for now, with a possible change of Hero, Duncan, not confident in that. Jimmy, Haywood, Highsmith has done more than enough to keep his starting job. And then Bam would start. I think Pelle Larsson's kind of locked in for the most part. Terry Rozier, 6-man off the bench, has been hot and cold for the most part. And then we saw Drew Smith play a pretty good bit in this game to really cut in Duncan Robinson. That's another thing that could happen. Duncan's really lost some steam. So like I said, maybe 60% chance that Duncan's maybe 70 at best. Like, I'm not confident Duncan keeps his starting job. But other than that, expecting Jimmy, and if Jimmy's out, as you noted, Jaime would start again, and then these other guys would all just kind of benefit from a minutes perspective. How confident are you in Duncan Robinson starting?
I'm really not confident in anything on the Heat.
Yeah, never.
Outside of Bam, Tyler, and Jimmy, I'm really not. Any given day, I think it could be anything outside of those 3 that are starting. And then the bench minutes from there, I have no idea either on any given day. There's too many bodies that they're willing to play. And we've seen at this power forward spot, we've seen Highsmith, we've seen Jovic, we've seen Kevin Love at different times during the course of the year. At this guard spot that has been Duncan Robinson spot, we've seen Terry Rozier, we've seen Duncan Robinson, we've seen in individual games and moments, we've seen Alec Burks take over that role, Pelle Larsson take over that role. Drew Smith starts the second half. Like, there are just too many cooks in the kitchen in terms of this one. So I'm very I'm lacking confidence in terms of trying to project the high-end outcomes for any of these secondary Miami guys. The only thing that I have confidence in for Miami is that when Jimmy Butler sits, they think Jaime Jaquez is Jimmy Butler. That's the only thing that I'm confident in Miami. Okay.
Yeah, if I could add one more thing. So just to add some clarity there. Yeah, Duncan, if I wasn't clear before, Duncan Robinson started the game and then didn't start the second half as they started Drew Smith. I said takeaway, but that was a pretty big move. But look who they played. They played Boston. Boston could really target weak defenders like Duncan Robinson. So maybe he gets a little bit of a saving grace. Not as daunting of a task against the Lakers, who aren't as multifaceted offensive. So I think he starts. But again, no, not confident at all.
Specifically without Reeves. Reeves is the guy. Reeves is the hunter. So the guys that will hunt matchups on the Lakers are LeBron and Reeves. LeBron he doesn't have, at this stage of his career, he's not hunting matchups all game long. Like, he doesn't have that in him to play 36 minutes while he's like carrying the offensive load, hunting matchups all game long. Reeves will do that a little bit, but yeah, without him, they don't really have anybody that does that.
What last point I promise? The fact that they started Drew Smith, who wasn't like playing great, like over Rozier, I think it is kind of makes it pretty clear they want to keep Rozier in the 6-man role.
Yep. Orlando and Philadelphia. On the Orlando side, Paolo Banchero still listed out with the right oblique tear. We're hoping to start to get questionable tags on him. Have not seen that yet. Goga Batadze questionable with this right ankle sprain. That seems like an optimistic questionable tag based on him being ruled out late yesterday in a game that carried much, much more weight and importance. Gary Harris remains out with the left hamstring strain. What are your expectations for the Magic tonight? Notice Wendell Carter Jr. not listed on the injury report today. We know the Magic sometimes will update things later in the day. It's surprising not to get any sort of listing for Wendell Carter Jr. on a back-to-back, just given, his injury history. Same with Jonathan Isaac. His minutes were kind of managed yesterday. So what are your notes here on the Magic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm treating Wendell Carter Jr. as questionable. We've seen this, half the time when the Magic are on a back-to-back, they'll have like their first version of the injury report and then their second version of the injury report. I mean, given the fact that he's been managed, his minutes were actually decent a couple games ago. But yeah, I think Wendell Carter could definitely miss this game. We have him in projections. Obviously, we got to take them at their word, but keep an eye out for that. We have Goga Batadze out of projections right now, rolled his ankle in warmups, asked out, was limping. Sounds like he's going to miss time and not great. We talked about this on the pod that we just did, that he might miss some time, and him potentially missing the quarterfinal round could really, really hurt them against a Bucks team that could attack them. That'll be on your pod feeds and on YouTube soon. But yeah, for now, expecting Wendell to start. Tristan da Silva will continue to start as we assume Goga out. Obviously, KCP, Jalen Suggs, and then Franz Wagner. Those guys will start. Jonathan Isaac's minutes have been really, really down. It is a back-to-back. I think we landed at 15 minutes with Goga out. Maybe he plays more. Mo Wagner should handle the non-Wendells. He might play as much, if not more, than Wendell here, as they may manage him. Anthony Black, and they'll play a little bit smaller. Anthony Black, maybe Cole Anthony plays, and all that stuff. But yeah, they went for it. They had to kind of cut the point differential down to stay in the tournament, and they did. They played Franz, even with blowout, 39 minutes. Jalen Suggs finally got the big minutes as he avoided injury and foul trouble. But yeah, expecting for now. Again, I don't know what I'm expecting. I'm expecting something. Whether they add Suggs, who had a hamstring injury last week. But yeah, we're treating Wendell Carter Jr. as like questionable, despite how he's not even listed.
Yep. Philadelphia side, they're without Andre Drummond, Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Kyle Lowry. So Paul George not healthy enough to play back-to-backs right now. Kyle Lowry also not going to play back-to-backs, even though he was barely in the rotation yesterday on his return, kind of subbed in late in the second quarter there. What are your expectations? We saw them start Yabusele and KJ Martin, with Caleb Martin kind of coming off the bench as he has some limitations on him. Matchup with Orlando, depending on Goga's availability, right? If Goga was somehow available, a lot more challenging to start kind of these smaller guys, but they don't really have any big options. So it is what it is. If Wendell Carter Jr. is the starting center, not as big of a deal. What are your expectations for what we see from Philadelphia tonight?
Yeah, expecting more of the same. I would expect Jared McCain, who was bumped to the bench when Paul George returned. So I think that's a pretty easy prediction that Jared McCain will get back in the starting lineup. I think KJ Martin did enough to stay in that first unit. And then we saw them pull Caleb kind of out with Paul George when Paul George first got hurt in the preseason. So expecting somewhat confidently Tyrese Maxey, who's not listed, should note, first time playing back-to-back since his hamstring pull. So him, Jared McCain, Kelly Oubre, KJ Martin, maybe it's Caleb, still leaning KJ, and then Gerson Yabusele starting. As you mentioned, no Lowry, so that should get the second unit led by Caleb Martin. Adem Bona should be in the mix pretty firmly, and then Ricky Council looks to be in there. So expecting Ricky Council to be one of their main bench guards, and then we should have Eric Gordon and or Reggie Jackson. I think that the way that they're stressing ball handling, I kind of lean Reggie Jackson ahead of Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon feels so buried, and then just using Ricky Council on the wing is a little bit more cutting into Eric Gordon's role than it is to cutting into Reggie Jackson's role, since you're basically making Jared McCain, Paul George to a degree, and then you kind of need to replace that. So I think that's more of a Reggie Jackson situation, but not all confident in that. It's Nick Nurse, never have a lot of confidence there. But yeah, I think that's mostly where we're at, and we'll see how many minutes Maxey can play. Again, really first true back-to-back test since getting injured.
All right, let's go to the Atlanta-Milwaukee game. On the Atlanta side of things, Trae Young probable with that right Achilles tendonitis. Otherwise, it's just the G Leaguers who are listed out here. What are your notes on Atlanta?
Yeah, their defense has been great. That's kind of my lead note. Their last handful of games, their three-point defense has been suddenly a little bit better. They're still like the worst team for catch and shoot stuff. Their on-ball defense has been really, really good lately. They're one of the best teams per possession in pick and roll handler defense. Shout out to Dyson Daniels. I saw some questions about who he's going to guard. I am very, very, very confident Dyson Daniels is going to be guarding Damian Lillard, who has been rolling, one of the hottest pick and roll handlers in the NBA. So you get a really strong pick and roll defense against one of the best pick and roll handlers in the NBA. So expecting Trae, who is not shooting it well. He's only scoring under 6 points off drives per game. Assists have been out of control, 22 and change on potential assists over his last 10. He is diamond like crazy. Talked about that on the podcast. And then, DeAndre Hunter is playing back-to-backs, playing full minutes. DeAndre Hunter will almost certainly come off the bench, but he's going to play a lot. I mean, we saw him play 29 in the last game. I think he could touch 30 today. They're going to need him to guard Giannis. I think he plays a really good bit here. So, starting lineup should be the same. Trey, Dyson, Clint Capella also playing really well. Jalen Johnson, Zach Richache with a very strong bench role from DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Onyeka Okongwu, and then Kobe Buffkin. Maybe gets squeezed a little bit because you want to play Hunter more, but feel pretty good that 9-man is extremely stable right now.
Yeah, I would say the only other note I'd add is break glass in case of emergency Larry Nance for Giannis if something were to happen with Hunter from a foul trouble perspective. This is one of those spots Larry Nance as a 4 could actually crack the rotation a little bit. Don't expect to see that, just a break glass in case of emergency. Milwaukee side, Giannis listed probable with right patella tendinopathy. They're without Marjon Beauchamp, AJ Johnson, Chris Livingston, Chris Middleton, and Tyler Smith. A little bit of a surprise here from an injury reporting perspective, just because you had noted that Doc Rivers had really complained about the scheduling factor that Milwaukee had to play a back-to-back with Detroit last night in this spot. I think this is their 4th game in 5 days, if I'm
They had
right,
the Friday,
well.
Saturday back-to-back. I think they were off for 2, so I think it's 4 and 6.
It's 4th and 6 days. Yeah, 4th and 6 days. So their second set of
2 back-to-backs in there.
Yeah. Actually, no, they've actually had more time off than that. Sorry. This is just a 3 and 4 spot. Wait, am I on the right team?
I think it was Friday. I'm pretty sure it was Friday, Saturday, then Tuesday, Wednesday.
They didn't play Friday. That's why.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 3 and 4 spot.
For them. No. Okay. Yep.
But this is game 2 of that 3 and 4 spot with them playing Friday against Boston. At Boston national TV game on Friday. So I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't more on the injury report here, but they managed to get through this game with pretty limited minutes on their main guys. Giannis only 28, Dame 32. Brook maybe the most concerning for me at 33. But Giannis, the only one listed on the injury report with the probable tag. He's played through this throughout the year. What are your notes on the Bucks?
I don't think there was a note there. So Giannis is probable. So I got my facts a little bit messed up. The game that he missed was not back-to-back. It was that Miami game when he got his listing changed. He was listed with a calf, and then he flipped into a knee. Yeah, I would be very careful about this probable tag. As you noted, Doc Rivers and JB Bickerstaff both complained about having to play back-to-backs after big cup games there. So Doc I thought there was going to be more than him. I thought we'd get a Q tag. I thought we'd get a Dame probable Q tag. I thought we may get a Brook tag. They're playing great. They've been a top 10 defense in their last 10 games overall. But, hey, we'll take them at their word. We'll see if Giannis flips to a questionable. But, I would for sure not bet any unders on my Bucks, non-Bucks there. So, but for now, we'll expect him in. Andre Jackson will continue to start and all that good stuff. Gary Trent playing a lot better. AJ Green, freaking Turing Prince, the best 3-point shooter in the NBA this year, over 56% from 3, has been unstoppable from 3. But for now, we'll see. But be careful about that Giannis probable tag.
All right, last game to talk through, Minnesota and the Clippers. On the Minnesota side, they're without Joe Ingles and Rob Dillingham, and then G Leaguers. Not a huge impact from a rotation standpoint. It makes it so that maybe Josh Minott is the next man up if they extend the rotation, but Minnesota's been very comfortable kind of playing 8. What are your notes on Minnesota here?
Yeah, we did see Minott sneak in there in the first half. It'll be almost certainly the core 8. Maybe we see Minott sneak in there. Rob Dillingham was limping pretty good, so he's pretty much out regardless of whatever happens here if they do kind of extend it. He had been looked like firmly in, and then now he got quickly booted out of the rotation. He's hurt anyways. So mostly the same situation here. Interesting matchup stuff. They put Derek Jones Jr. last time they played on the ball in Mike Conley, and they actually used James Harden a pretty good bit on Julius Randle the last time they played the Clippers for a matchup note. But Rudy Gobert playing so many minutes here. We saw him play 43 minutes the last time they played the Clippers. We'll see. He didn't do anything with those minutes. But, we know where we're at. They've got the quote-unquote 8 starters with their starting lineup: Conley, Ant-Man, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Gobert, and then their core bench guys of Nasri, Dante DiVincenzo, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Random note, Do you guys? I cannot stand the Anticause Sprite commercial. I can't take it. It's got to be one of the most annoying commercials I've ever seen. I do love Ant, but that commercial can go.
All right, on to the Clippers, who can also go because they have not filed their injury report. They're on the second night of a back-to-back here. Pretty clean win at home against Portland last night. No travel. So I'm not really expecting to see anything here with the exception of maybe Norm Powell, who just recently returned. We're waiting to see if he's able to go tonight. And then Terrence Mann, who fractured a finger in last night's game. That's usually something you can play through, but maybe not the day immediately after. It might be something that like needs attention and then can play. But what are your thoughts on what we see from the Clippers tonight?
Yeah, Terrence Mann, fractured finger. He's going to miss. Usually that's a 4 to 6 weeker for that kind of a hand injury. So he'll be out for the rest of 2024. And then, yeah, I think Norm sits. He's been managed quite clearly. Usually you don't play back-to-backs when you're being managed. After the game, Ty Lue said he doesn't know how long that's going to be, and he didn't know if he's going to play today. We have him out. Again, they've been managing him pretty strictly on this minutes limit. He's been really good, though, the last 2 games. So expecting Norm to sit. That should get Amir Coffey in the first unit again. Amir Coffey's minutes have been generally pretty good, and now he doesn't have Terrence Mann, who partly cut into him. We saw that, I think it was against Denver. Coffey got dinged up, and Mann was cooking, so it was a little bit of a combination. So taking out Norm, we think, taking out Terrence Mann, this gets pretty tight, and we're getting pretty tight on minutes. So we've got the starting lineup, assuming Norm out, Harden, Amir Coffey, Chris Dunn, who will guard Anthony Edwards, Derek Jones Jr., Zubats. Those guys should start pretty confident there. And then the bench, Jordan Miller is like one of their best bench guys now. Nick Batum should play a pretty good bit. We have Bones Highland getting minutes. Mo Bamba getting minutes, and then we're like running out of minutes here. So I had to go to the G League tracker and look where the San Diego Clippers are playing. They're in Oceanside, so not quick car drive to get to Intuit Dome there. So expecting they could bring Cam Christie or Trenton Flowers back in there to fill some minutes, but it could go tight. And then there could be more stuff too. Maybe they sit out Harden. Harden's been playing a ton of minutes here. So yeah, we don't have too much yet, but I feel pretty confident Norm's not going to play, and then obviously Terrence Mann is going to miss 4 weeks here.
And Kevin Porter Jr.
Yep, Kevin Porter Jr. also. Yeah, we have him out as well.
Name. Yeah, I'm misremembering things, but maybe it's just that modern basketball now you actually need both of your hands to always play. And back in the 90s and early 2000s, guys could play with just a splint on their finger and not have any issues. Terrence Mann's not shooting the ball anyway. Why not? Why can't he just put a splint on the finger and just play through it? I don't know. But yeah, it'll be an injury report to watch on. And obviously right now, our assumption that Norman Powell misses is probably different than the market would be my guess. But we'll wait to see on that. Okay. Let's wrap it there. That'll be it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, appreciate your support in supporting this content. If you're interested in any of our premium content, you can check out establishedrun.com/subscribe-NBA for more details on our premium product offerings on the prop side or on the DFS side. Very proud of the work that we're putting out over there. If you'd like to check us out, you can find more information over there. Would recommend strongly reading that FAQ if you're interested in the prop side of things. Also, if you're interested in supporting our free content, best way to do that is to subscribe to this channel. We keep trying to grow this channel and had a big year last year, getting to 5,000 subscribers. With your help, we'd like to keep growing this further and allow us to continue to provide this free content. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You can hit the bell and get notifications whenever we go live as well, or whenever new content is posted, like the podcast that Mike just referenced that we recorded before this, breaking down last night's action in the Emirates NBA Cup and previewing those quarterfinal matchups for next week. So look for that on this channel later on today. It's producer Ryan working behind the scenes on that. If you're interested in supporting this specific piece of free content, the best way to do that is to smash that like button and feed that algorithm. That helps feed our families and allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your season-long lineups, your DFS lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.